Hello, book connectors. Welcome back to the Book Connection. Visitors, should you happen upon the channel, feel free to join us. We'd love to have you here. Hello there, book connectors and music lovers, music lovers and book connectors as well. Yes, as you can see from my opening, I'm trying something new and different this go around. So welcome back to both the Book Connection, where I am your host, Blue-Eyed Black Devil, as well as Ms. Music. Both are here on YouTube. What I am trying to do is kill two birds with one stone, so this one video is going to appear on both my channels. If it's been done before or not, I really don't know. I don't think I've ever seen it done before, but if it has, this is still my first time trying this, so keep your fingers crossed and let's see how it goes. Okay, I don't know why I am so nervous, but here goes. I am here finally with a video for Mr. Billy Joel. I am doing this in parts because that's the way the book is written. And so I am here with part 1, and this includes the prologue and the first 3 chapters. Okay, before I begin to tell you the story, there is a documentary that can be found on YouTube, and it's called The Joel Files. If you are interested in history, or if you are interested in, say, like military history especially, this will be very fascinating to you. I recommend you watch it, but this particular one is based on the family of Billy Joel. Most of it is about before he was even born. It talks about his grandfather's life for the most part. But anyway, let's get back to the telling of Mr. Billy Joel's story. William Martin Joel was born on May 9th, 1949 in Bronx, New York. By the time 1950 rolled around, or shortly thereafter, the family moved to Long Island, and I believe this is where he makes his home today still. Now, he was the only biological child. His parents, I forgot to say that. His mother's name was Rosalind, or Roz for short. She was the younger of 3 daughters born to her family. And her Billy's father's name, well, he was born in, Germany? Austria? I think it was Germany. But anyway, his birth name was Helmut, but when the family relocated to the U.S., he changed it to Howard. So for the little you'll hear me say about his father, I will refer to him from now on as Howard Joel. Now, Howard, I know he was born in 1923, and his mother, Rosalind, was born in 1922. Howard was an only child, and like I just said, his mother, Rosalind, had two older sisters. Now, together, Roz and Howard only had one child, which is Billy Joel. That's how we know him. But the name on the documentary, the J was not pronounced as J or Joel. It was pronounced with a Y, like Joel, like the Joel file. But I don't know if it was Americanized to be Joel, or if someone just decided to change it. And the reason I think they may have changed the pronunciation of the name is because when his father, Howard, was a little boy, his parents, Carl and Meta Joel, they started out maybe like from, I won't say rags, but just maybe a little bit better than rags, but then they developed or opened it was the first of its kind over there. It was a mail order business, and it was like linens, I guess bedding, household stuff, bed, bathroom, living room, that kind of stuff. That's what they were doing, and it was quite a successful business. But you know who, Mr. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, they just ran roughshod all over the place, and eventually he ended up, their father, Howard's father, Carl, ended up losing everything. They railroaded that man out of all of his businesses. They kept telling him that once the war was over, or once Hitler was satisfied, he was trying to rid the country of Jews. How did I not understand if white people just always find reasons to hate people who are not looking at acting and being just like them. But anyway, that was the thing. And at one while, they was like you could be arrested just because you were a Jew. That's stupid to me. But anyway, Howard's parents were able to send him off to a boarding school when they started harassing his father. Eventually, they went in and they took his house and all of the furniture and this, that, and the other. So Carl and his wife made a getaway. They were able somehow to escape to the United States. They managed to get word to Howard where they would be if he were ever to have to come to look for them and things. And over time, he did eventually. I think Howard was like 18, maybe 19 when he came to the United States. And the parents never did, at one while, I can't pronounce these people's names, and I'm not going to try to, but Carl was promised once the war ended and things started to settle down that Carl's business would be restored back to him, and that's not what happened. It just got, and then they were like, well, you can get it back, but you're going to have to pretty much, in essence, take a loss. Just for example, if it was going to cost him $1 million to get it back, it's going to cost you $1,500,000 to get it back. And knowing all along these people were living from hand to mouth at this time. But eventually they did get some money after they got over here in the States. And with the money they received, they traveled around the world, and they came back, and they decided that they wanted to go back home to their country of Germany. And they did. They went back. Well, I don't think they made it to Germany. I think that was their final destination or their ultimate destination. But they made a stop somewhere. Either way it goes, Howard's mother, Netta, died in 1971 in one country, and then, 11 years later, Howard's father, Carl, passed away in 1982, and when he died, it was said that he, was a bitter older man. I guess I can understand that. He really lived a hard life, and all he was trying to do was provide for his family. Now, as for Mr. Howard and Roz, it just seems like they were together, not so much because they loved each other. Well, I really do believe Roz did love Howard. But Howard didn't have it in him to. He just was not a nurturer. He just wasn't there. Billy was like, he was very cold and standoffish, and he never really seemed to be impressed by anything Billy did. And so his job, because he worked for a whole lot of different companies, some like ABC, I forgot what he did, but he did something in electronics. And his job took him all over the nation. And so he would be gone, I guess it started out days, then weeks, and eventually it just got to where Howard didn't come home. And in his absence, he wasn't paying bills. And so that left Roz to fend for herself and their 2 children. Because although Howard and Roz only had 1 child, which is Billy, Roz's oldest sister passed away when her youngest daughter, Judy, was only 8 weeks old. Now, it was said that Roz's sister Muriel, that was her sister's name, and they called her Mooch. But they said that she was very quiet, she was fun-loving, and loved to cook. She married, had 1 daughter, Susie, and then 4 years later, she had her daughter, Judy, but this time she suffered from severe, what do you call this stuff? Postpartum depression. She had postpartum depression in the worst way. So, not to mention her husband, Max, he just kept living his life as though he was single. He womanized, he gambled, he did all whatever. He did everything but pay attention to the wife and the new baby. So one day, her husband, Max, came home to find Judy, who was 8 weeks old at the time. She was on the bed. It turns out that Mooch had, when they left, Max took Susie with him. They left, and when they came back, they found the note Mooch had written, and it was addressed mainly to her parents and siblings, but that included her husband at the time too. But basically the note said something along the lines of, I know that I have cancer, so I have decided I don't want to continue to be a burden to anybody, and I apologize. And then she went in there, placed Judy in the center of the bed, put chairs all around the bed, so hopefully she wouldn't fall off the bed. She went and pulled I think it was like some sort of a woolen blanket. She pulled it to block the doorway to keep any air from getting in or going out or whatever. She turned the stove on, and when Max comes home, he finds her deleted, and the baby pretty much was okay. And I think the family was so devastated that her husband, Max, was the only one that attended the funeral. Well, it wasn't long after she passed away. He took his oldest daughter, Susie, and he went on, married someone else. So Roz got Judy, excuse me, y'all, and they, because she was still with Howard at the time, they continued to raise Judy. Judy was 12 when she found out what happened to her biological mother and things. Now, Billy always felt that Judy, Roz, and he had great relationships. Yes, it was hard. Billy came from a blue-collar, working-class family, and he was like, they lived in the suburbs, but they were the poorest people. on their street or area. It's like they didn't have a carport, and they never could do any updates to the house, like add a carport or renovate a room, anything that required a lot of money, because it was just his mom. But Judy feels different. She says sometimes Roz would do not so nice things. And it sounds like she may have frightened Judy at some point. I don't know. But Billy does say somewhere along the way that somehow because Judy and Billy weren't raised as first cousins. They were raised as sister and brother. And the two of them had or have still a good relationship. They just disagreed about that, I guess. But yes, she said one time Roz left them alone for a few days without anything to eat and whatever. And then she comes back like she just went to the store, was gone for maybe an hour. And they just picked up wherever they were when they left out before Roz went away. I don't know what that was about. But then she also, one day, Judy comes home because Roz, I guess she started drinking a little more than she normally did or whatever. But sometimes she would just kind of be lost in her own little world if she ever had anything to drink. I don't know how bad that was. But one time I know Judy says she came home and found, because if the mother was drinking, a lot of times she wouldn't eat. She simply just would not eat. So one day Judy came home to find Billy sitting on top of his mother trying to force ice cream down her throat. It was just that bad. She just couldn't or wouldn't eat. But he went on and he made friends and stuff. And Billy was not very tall, and he wasn't a big guy, so he was on the smaller side. And people used to tease him. One day, he said some little girl told him that, basically, I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of, I can't play with you because you're a Jew. And just mean things that people would do and say. But he went on and made friends nice enough. Okay. He goes through school. He first meets this girl in the 8th. Well, he liked this girl. When they were in the 8th grade, he wrote her letters and stuff. And he thought she was liking him in return until he heard her tell her friends that this creep keeps looking at me every day and stuff. So now he knows, basically. Moving on, he goes on, and he finally on over, I think in the 10th or 11th grade, he starts to date this girl named Patty. This girl is thought to be the girl he was speaking of in his song Keeping the Faith. And when asked about it, she says, yes, she believes that she was the one he was describing in the song. Something about in the back of the Chevrolet. I guess that's where they made out for the first time or something. It's been a minute since I listened to that song. But, like I said, he said sometimes he would come home or he would catch his mom. He might be in the house. Okay, sorry about that interruption. But yes, one day, he went in the kitchen, and his mom was just staring out the window. Just staring. And he was like, what are you looking at? And because he looked out, and he said, yeah, he's seen, the men who worked, they were coming home to their families at the end of a long work day, and they have their suits on, and they do this, and the kids run to meet the dad. He's running to meet the kids, and he stops and kisses the wife, and then they go on in the house. None of that happened in their house, of course. But he said when he asked his mom what was she doing, she was like, oh, nothing. Maybe your dad will come home. So she was still missing him for a while. So this went on. So eventually, let's get to, now he always, okay, let me say this, and then I'll be through with the dad, I think, for this video anyway. When the dad was home, he said, now I've seen him, of course, but he just, it was just odd that he didn't go out of his way to have anything to do with him. Or Judy. It probably wasn't much for the wife either because he was just so unhappy. In fact, Howard ended up moving back to Germany, although he served in the U.S. military, when he first came to this country and stuff. But his ties were still for his motherland. So he left, but when he would be there, it was just like a big block of ice, according to Billy. Now, the only thing was he had a gift for music. He could play. Matter of fact, Billy feels like that was part of his dad's problem. He wanted to be a concert pianist, and he was very, very great at it. And but his father, Carl, said no. He wanted him to study whatever he ended up studying, and that's what he did, whatever it was with the electronics he was into. But he said he was a big fan of Wagner. If you are classical, you're familiar with his works and stuff. But anyway, Billy said the only thing was when he got through playing, he seemed to be in a very bad mood. Playing music usually cheers you up. It makes you feel a little bit better. It can calm you, but I guess it can rile up bad or negative memories. Because Billy said that's why his dad was every single time. He just was in a worse mood when he got through playing. But he was a brilliant player. Okay. His mother told him one time, she was like, did you ever wonder how we ended up with the piano? Well, she was late with her menstrual cycle one month, and she told Howard that, she was late, and he was horrified. He just did not want to have any more children, period. And she said, well, I tell you what, if I go to the doctor and I am not pregnant, you have to get me a piano. And at first he tried to balk, and she said, no, Howard, you love to play the piano. This house needs music. So she went to the doctor, and she said it was so disappointing to her because she always wanted more kids. But she was not pregnant, so he held up his end of the deal. They bought a used piano. I think she said that piano cost $75, but it cost them $125 to have it shipped to their house. I believe we may be going back in that direction, y'all. I really do. I think shipping and handling is going to eventually cost more than the product you're paying to have shipped and handled. So just be on the lookout for that. But yeah, that's what happened to them. So that's how they got the piano. That's how her husband, he would play. And then Billy, he always had an ear for music. And he would play, but his was more or less, he was into rock and roll or like the doo-wop days and He said when he was 14, he and one of his good friends slipped into a James Brown concert, and he was just mesmerized at James dancing. He was like his feet would never be still, and he just had so much. He had a lot of respect for. Well, he named a whole bunch of people. It wasn't just James Brown. I know that not Billy, Ray Charles, I believe overall, is Billy's favorite. Well, not James, Ray Charles and Nat King Cole. He was crazy about them. He does mention Stevie Wonder all throughout this part of the book. But yes, Ray was his favorite, and so when they did that song together, that duet, My Baby Grand, I thought about that. I was like, okay, well, maybe they were best friends. Okay. Well, not maybe best friends, but I do know that Billy highly respected Ray. All right. And matter of fact, he was so crazy about Ray that's why his oldest daughter, Alexa, has his middle name, or has Ray as her middle name, Alexa Ray. It was in honor of Ray Charles. All right, so he goes along, he goes to school, and you do what you do. Well, then he gets to the 12th grade. Now, when he hits the 12th grade, by then, he had already been a part of several different groups, and he was just getting his feet wet, trying to start building a name for himself. This went on for quite a while. And then, hold on. It's close to graduation. He finds out that he doesn't have quite enough credits to graduate high school. He said he just refused to go to summer school to get that other credit to graduate. When he found out that he didn't quite have enough credits, he just said, well, forget that. He said, I knew it would hurt my mother. All she ever wanted was, for me to be able to be okay. I have a high school diploma, but I just was not going to do it. So they were talking about it one night, and Billy told that lady, I'm not going to Columbia University. I'm going to Columbia Records. But he loved his mom, and the last thing he ever wanted to do was to hurt her. But he was just that convicted not convicted, but he was just that committed to making a name. He said he knew even as a kid, 5 and 6 years old, when he would play, or when his father would play, or he ended up taking piano lessons. He said he always knew that he was going to be in music somehow, somewhere. He didn't know if he would be singing, writing, producing, arranging, rearranging, what. He didn't know if it would be rock, or if it would be classical, or if it would be like, I don't know, soul, whatever. Because every genre of music, I believe, you can hear in Billy's songs, depending on what you listening to. So he always knew that was going to be his thing. And growing up, Billy said he really does not recall a television being in their house. Well, they did have one, but it went out. I think he said they had it for like 2 years. And when it burned out, they didn't get another one until he was in his 20s. So he read. He was a voracious reader. And while he did not get his high school diploma right then, he was still smarter than a lot of the teachers. His favorite subject, this book came out in 2014, and the narrator, was talking about how, if you go into his house, his den, his library, his study is just filled from floor to ceiling with anything you could possibly ever think of. If it has a place in history, Billy has it on the shelf, and bookshelf. And they're not there just for show. He actually has read everything in those books. History, he ate it up. He drank it like it was water. That was his thing. History and music, and history, music, history. That's what it is. And I think about that. Now, if his family hadn't gone through all that they went through before Billy was even thought of or conceived, that's a big, massive history right there. And then he goes on and adds to the Joel name becoming successful in his own right. Well, so he didn't graduate, but he went through being in different groups. And some of the names of these groups, they just tickled me. Like one time they were the Hassles. Okay, that's okay. Then you had the Lost Souls. They really liked that name, but they couldn't keep it because someone in Britain, Great Britain, I believe it was, they already had gotten that for their name. And then somebody came up with the idea of calling it the group Billy Joe and the Astros. That was my favorite one. Billy Joe and the Astros. None of those really. Oh, wait a minute. It was one band. Oh, Attila. Like Attila the Hun. None of those bands or formations worked. It eventually came down to just Billy Joel and this man named John Small. Now, here's the deal. John Small was married to this lady named Elizabeth Weber. Here's a tangled twist right here. Billy somehow and Elizabeth somehow found themselves attracted to each other. So Billy had moved in with them because, musicians keep weird hours to a lot of people. So he had left his mom's and he had moved in with them. And then they get up and go to work together every day. This is what they do. Routine. Well, one time they had some performance. And then after the show was over, John goes back to the dressing room just dripping in sweat. But somehow Billy and Elizabeth had gotten dressed or whatever, cleaned themselves up, or Billy did. Some kind of way, John looks out the window and he sees Billy and Elizabeth getting into a car. And he knew they were headed for the house. So after he dried himself off pretty good, he went home and there was Billy, Elizabeth, and Elizabeth's sister. John was so mad, he just grabbed the sister, Josephine, and threw her through a glass window, something like that. And then he got Elizabeth and he decked Billy for a while. Now, unbeknownst to anybody, Elizabeth was pregnant with John's son, Sean. I think Sean was born in April of 1967. So Billy comes to find out he didn't know that Elizabeth had not told Joe that she wanted to leave the marriage. She didn't let on anything was happening. So, and I don't know if there were any other telltale signs that John just didn't notice or overlooked. I don't know. But when he found out, John that is, that Billy and Elizabeth had not only, when he found out they liked each other, Billy finally admitted to being in love with her. That hurt John or what have you, but John and Elizabeth, when it all came out, when Billy came forth and said what he said and stuff, they went through some tough times, but they eventually were able to come back and be friends again. But when it first happened, Elizabeth just left. She didn't go to John or Billy. She stayed away. Sounds like it may have been for months. But she eventually comes back, and together, when Billy and Elizabeth got married, she had Sean. Billy helped raise Sean. I think he was like 9 or 10, maybe even 11, by the time Billy and Elizabeth broke up. That was rough, but it sounds to me, well, I know, okay, she had a lot going on because she met quite a few people through Billy, but everybody that she met, and even people she knew from the past, like that girl I was talking about in the Keeping the Faith song, Patty, she and Elizabeth used to get along, but Elizabeth managed to sever ties to people completely. What she was doing, I'm not quite so sure at this point, but I don't care how well you get along with, or you're going along, you're partying, you're at the same concerts, whatever the case may be, all is all well, fine and good until it's not. And I don't know of anybody who remained friends with Elizabeth after, the argument is long forgotten. That's just how she was. But when Billy found out that John honestly had no idea about them being together, Billy was so depressed. It was awful. Not to mention, they were having hard times getting any radio play, nobody was calling him in, and he was like, this is all I do is music and blah, blah, blah. He got so depressed that he ended up trying to unalive himself. He was talking about one time how he was sitting there. He said he was just basically sitting around at his mother's house. What did he say? Let me get it correct. He said he was just polishing his mother's couch by farting all day. Gross. Oh my goodness, what did his mama do to him? Did you just go sit up and But see, what he said, what happened was, he went into one of the closets there, and he saw a skull and crossbone, but right next to that, he saw some furniture polish. And he just decided, well, I'll just drink this, and that'll be all right. Okay, he had gotten somebody to get him some pills. And he's like, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. So he took the pills along with the furniture polish. He said that's where that excessive flatulence came from. Somehow, I want to say John came and found Billy passed out on the floor. So they got him to a hospital. He ended up in the hospital on the psychiatric ward. I guess, they were testing him, evaluating him, trying to see what was going on. But when he finally came around well enough to understand, he said they told him that they pumped his stomach, and he was going to be in there until they could get a proper diagnosis for what was going on. And he just talked about how, he was in there with a lot of crazy people. You sleep in this one big communal room on cots, and the nurses would come around and give you your little pills and stuff. He said one time he walked to the nurse's station, and he was like, hello, my name is Billy Joel, and I am not supposed to be in here. I don't belong in here. These people in here are crazy. He said they just looked at him and like, yes, sir, Mr. Joel, here are your pills. He said he was standing in there looking like Louis XIV. His long hair and his mustache. I guess, he was a bit unkempt from all of whatever that led to him being in there. And then he probably, I imagine, by being a psych ward, they weren't too quick to let you have razors. Whatever it takes that could easily be used as a weapon. So that's what it was. I don't know how long he was there. Probably no more than 2 weeks, maybe a month. I don't know. But he just talked about when he walked out of there, the sound of that door closing. You said kind of is like what it might sound in prison, just a loud clanking noise. So he left out of there. Well, when John finds out that he is out, he tells him about all of these different gigs and stuff that he lined up. And Billy was like, look, he had been writing several songs even before he ended up on the psych ward. And he hadn't had a chance to get them out anywhere. So he tells John, look, either I'm gonna sink or I'm gonna swim, but I cannot do this for the rest of my life, walk around and not get the word out. And it just so happens that when he did that, he started getting some callbacks from some of the songs he released, and that's where chapter 3 ends. So I'll tell you in the next video what those songs were, because I honestly don't remember, but they are songs that we know of, those of us who like his music. But yes, he's at a crossroads. But right now, it looks like things are starting to pick up for him after having such a bottom of the barrel type depression. So, once again, music lovers and book connectors and music lovers, this completes this video on Mr. Billy Joel Part 1, which includes the prologue and the first 3 chapters, along with my commentary. In the meantime, let me just thank each and every one of you, my book connectors and music lovers, for being subscribed. Thank you so very much. And visitors, feel free to join us. We'd love to have you over here. Everyone, please do not forget to like, share, comment respectfully, and by all means, make sure that you have your notification bells not only turned on both channels, but I need you to have them set to all on both channels as well. Well, this is it for now, book connectors and music lovers. So until we read and listen again, remember this: as long as there are books and music around, there is always something to read and listen to. Book connectors and music lovers all around the world, be safe, have a blessed day, and God bless. Bye for now.